Good morning. This is TCR, TroyCommunityRadio.com. I'm Clint Myers on 107.1 WTJN. As we get to it on this Saturday morning, it's time for the Mayor's Report, and with me is Mayor Michael Beamish.
Well, I am glad to be here, and good thanks to you, Clint and David, for airing this show and allowing me to share what's going on.
Well, that way we can keep all the citizens up to date exactly what's going on here in Troy. And as they say, you get it straight from the horse's mouth.
Well, we did. We've had some interesting week in the past. Some different kinds of weather have come in and gone, and
different events that were going on.
Different events that have happened. So maybe we can just touch base on a few of those.
Okay. Let's start with back on Monday. Martin Luther King Jr. Day had an event right here in the downtown, the walk.
It's a National Observance Day, and yes, we met at the Bakehouse downtown. It was a rather snowy, cold, blustery day, but there were a number of us
Absolutely.
who did take the walk. We walked down to the Troy Police Department where we had prayer and prayed for obviously peace and unity in our world today. It's always good to have that. And then we moved down to the United Methodist Church where we had a worship service and a number of people spoke, including the mayor who gave a proclamation honoring that day. And then we crossed the street to First Place and had a fellowship luncheon, which was well done, and I really do appreciate. I believe Kettering Health Network sponsored that luncheon for us too. So they're getting more and more engaged in our community, which is a positive thing as well.
Yes, they are. Another thing, not to really jump topic, but I see that they've got a big crane down there now.
A big crane.
To me, that just means things are moving along.
Things are moving along, and they have their targets they're trying to accomplish. Of course, everything seems to be weather related, but boy, I've seen some of their workers out there in those bitter cold days, still trying to move their project forward, and
they're doing it. Yeah, they are. They're out there surviving the cold.
It will be good.
That's determination right there. We had lost William Hobart Jr.
Well, yes. Recently we've lost a number of good citizens who
Yes.
have passed away and contributed, and council met. We should say this. Normally, council meets the first and third Mondays of the month. Well, with
Postponed today.
Right. It was postponed today, so we met on Tuesday the 16th. Interesting enough, on that council meeting day, which took place, and it was pretty cold that day too. We didn't have any resolutions to discuss. We didn't have any ordinances to discuss. But we did have one thing that we did, and you brought this up earlier. We did lose William Hobart Jr. From our community, and so council passed a resolution of memoriam, which goes to the family, but also goes into our archives as a historic document. And anybody that knows Bill Hobart, that's how I knew him, as Bill Hobart. He was one of those people that was very community-minded, contributed. The Hobart name in Troy is a legacy that I live on.
Absolutely.
And he was instrumental in many of the projects. I may have shared this. A lot of people don't realize, but the many people that play soccer in this community really started way back in the 70s when Bill Hobart called a number of us together and said, I got this sport that I'd like for you to consider for the youth of Troy. And look at it today. And a lot of people don't realize Bill Hobart was instrumental in making that program start in Troy.
Well, when I think of soccer now and how far that has come, I think of the soccer tournaments that go on during the Strawberry Festival, when there are so many going on that they actually use fields in other towns.
Yeah. Well, and Mr. Hobart did so many of those things. He was really into protecting the environment. and you see the Hobart Urban Preserve.
Yes.
As a good example of that. He did so much with the history of Troy and the legacy and the Hobart brothers and just the Hobart name in general. So the council saw fit to pass that resolution in memoriam and signed by all members of council and by the mayor. That will be shared with the family and then also in our historical records.
That's a great way to kind of put the, I don't want to say close the book, but certainly put that page in.
And if I could just mention a couple of other folks, Jane Coltice passed away. Many of us know Dick Coltice as our city auditor, but also the county commissioner. That was a loss to our community. And just most recently, Cheryl Stiffel Francis
Yes.
passed away and is going to be missed by her family, by the communities that she served as the Miami County Foundation Executive Director.
Yeah, she played a big role up in Piqua for a lot of years, and then went on to the Miami County Foundation.
And had a Troy residence here, so
Yes.
it was a county type of
Well,
loss.
that's what I'm saying. She's
and so
really
I just
everywhere.
want to send our condolences out to the families of those folks and many others who have given to this community and county and have passed on.
All right. Now, I know something else that did come up in council was folks talking about the snow removal and my street did or this one didn't. And
Yes.
with snow removal, those guys are out there from when everybody else is still asleep in their beds. Our street crew goes out and starts clearing the roads. Of course, first up, we're going to clear the primary roads
Absolutely.
that are going to, get, especially that are going to be able to get emergency vehicles out in the town. And then they go to the secondary roads. And then how does it break down from there? You're on a cul-de-sac yourself, and people saying, well, our cul-de-sac didn't. As you would be the first one on the list that gets a cul-de-sac plowed out, aren't you?
Actually, I'm the last, and it's by design. I'm a senior in this community and been around through all kinds of weather emergencies over many, many decades, and so I feel I can speak just for myself as a taxpayer, not just as a mayor, but a person who's a resident in a cul-de-sac that is on the lower end of the priority. You said it so well. First of all, I got to give a shout out to our street workers. A lot of people, we always look at the downside of things. It's never done quick enough, or it's never done as good enough. But I will tell you, these guys are dedicated to their jobs. And if you were out and watching, as you obviously do from your vantage point in downtown, in fact, our even downtown, it's not like we forgot everything. We have priorities. In fact, we even have now taken care of the downtown with pushing the snow into piles and knowing that they're still there. Well, we came in
and hauled them out.
And hauled it out normally to North Market Street in those areas down by the ball fields.
Okay.
I guess what I'm asking people is to be patient and understanding of the priorities, but realizing that we're never done until we're done. And so we may take a little longer to get to certain streets. My cul-de-sac's a good example. I live in a very small cul-de-sac, one of the last to get attention done. But I've yet, and like I said, I'm a senior, like many people in this community are, and I've never gotten stuck in my cul-de-sac. It's a short drive to a secondary road.
That's what I was just going to ask.
Correct.
Once you leave your road, then your road would be off of a secondary road.
And I've been blessed because I haven't had an issue with getting in and out and all around in this community. But the priorities is always going to be for the safety of our people coming in and out of our town, and that is through we have two main routes, the Market Street and the Main Street routes. out. So that becomes the main issue that we need to take and give attention to. Then we go to, as you just said earlier, secondary roads, the ones that we have a lot of high traffic on. We want to take care of that. And as we continue to move out, a lot of folks, and you and I have discussed this before, when you get into residential streets, you have cars parked on the street, and the trucks do try to go through there, and we timestamp that. Our street foreman, Jerry, we've had many times, who we all know really does care about this community.
He
wants
does.
to do the best. You hear that all the time in his message from his heart. But he will tell you they timestamp when they send a truck down the residential streets. But one of the issues that's hard is there are cars parked there, and that's residential. But to have a truck in and out, around and about, could cause even more problem. Second to that, and I ask people to be patient and understanding, is in these weather emergencies that we've had, especially recently where we've had ice, then snow, and to top that off, bitterly cold temperatures. Sometimes if you scrape,
if you're trying to take it all off, and what's on the bottom is ice, if you don't leave a little something for traction on top of it, you ain't going nowhere.
Thank you, Clint. That's exactly what it's like a Zamboni.
Yeah. That's what it turns the truck into. And so you just smooth it out.
These guys in our street, they realize that, and so they have to use their judgment. When do you? So we have lots of issues, and so I, for one, can speak for myself as a taxpayer and in a cul-de-sac that is on the lower end of the priority list, to say if I use caution, I can get out to a primary or a secondary, and I'm moving around pretty quickly after a snow emergency. And then from there, they don't stop. They just don't say, "Hey, well, we're finished with the primaries."
No,
and
they
secondaries.
keep going.
And we have miles and miles of residential streets that we have to cover, and so they try to do it in much like leaf pickup.
Yes,
Clint, zones. They try to do it in zones and to move forward. And a good example is they did get to the downtown. And the snow that they tried to put in piles, they got rid of.
Yes.
So
there's nothing that you have to climb over to get into the downtown, and everything else is pretty much where it is for this last storm system that moved through. And they gathered up the rest of the snow. Now, granted, we're supposed to warm up this weekend, and someone might say, well, why were you wasting time moving snow out of the down? Well, now,
takes a while.
Yeah, because those big piles aren't going to melt in 2 days.
And they also make puddles.
Yeah.
And then that becomes an issue.
That could refreeze in the overnight if the temperature gets down cold enough.
Clint,
so it's avoiding some of those. One other thing I'll point out when we're thinking residential, one, make sure you keep, if you've got one of those storm water drains in front of your house, go out there with your shovel and make sure that stays cleared so it doesn't ice over, and then you wind up when things do start melting, this big backup. Yeah, you want to make sure that as things melt, it can go down that stormwater drain, and make sure that your fire hydrants stay clear. And maybe one more tip that a lot of people don't think about is when you're shoveling your driveway, try to keep it to the right side of your driveway. When the plow comes down, it doesn't pick up your pile and put it back in front of your driveway.
That's a great, Clint. You're a great spokesman, and I guess we can always look at, can we do things better? Yes. Do we try to do better? Yes. But I will tell you that you won't find a more dedicated group of people that work as hard, and they do it in priority fashion, and. We're able to move around. And we're not any different than other communities either.
No.
If you drive around, some may do it a little different than we do it.
Now, I had cleared out my driveway and was parked in the street and salted everything, and my driveway was coming along great. And while I was in the house, I knew I heard the rumble of one of those trucks. I got outside immediately, got my truck moved into the driveway, and sure enough, here comes the plow. Was able to get right in front of the house and go on down the street. So, I mean, it's also know what you can do that would also help out these guys that have been out there in one of those trucks plowing that might already have been plowing 6, 7, 8 hours.
Or more. And all I'm doing is we've had mild winters in the past. This seems to be a little more challenging for all of us. We have to also consider the amount of salt that we have available to us. So all those things are taken in consideration, but I will stand by and you've seen Jerry Mullins, street foreman, and our engineer. They work in collaboration.
Yes.
To look at what the situation is, but it's all about trying to be safety conscious to the majority of the citizens, and you got to start somewhere, so you start with the primaries and secondaries. And by the time the end of the week, this week's a good example, we've done a pretty good job.
All right. You know what? I think they have. And I would also suggest anyone who doesn't think that there's a hustle and a bustle in the downtown with city workers or the street workers, you come down here at about 4:30 in the morning, 5 o'clock, and you'll be surprised the activity that you see that they're getting things ready for maybe you to go out and drive on the road.
And you see that.
I see that I see it every morning.
I might still be in bed, but you see that because you're here. And I appreciate your comments today. And again, I think our citizens are very conscientious. They're good folks. And the vast majority understand the situation. When you have a weather emergency, as we have had this year with temperatures going from cold to coldest, and you have ice and snow and all those ingredients, it could be worse. We could, and North Carolina got hit pretty hard,
gosh.
and they're not prepared like the city of Troy to handle snow emergencies.
Oh, Georgia,
ice emergencies.
Texas, Florida, they've all had their chance to see some of this weather this winter.
If you see those pictures, it makes our situation look a lot more promising. Now, do we want to continue to try to improve? Yes. I want to say that clearly. But be patient with us, because these street people are doing the very best with the amount of roads they cover, and the amount of equipment that they have, and the amount of salt that they have at their disposal.
And you think about this too. Add this in. Troy's growing. And it's been adding kind of all over the place. So that means more streets. That means that there's more to cover too.
And I'm just one of those citizens too.
Yeah.
Every time we have a snow event, I'm involved too. so let's all be a little more understanding, and we'll get through it. We will get through these.
And also, when we get the snow, make sure that if you do have an elderly neighbor, someone that could use an extra hand, maybe someone who is handicapped, go offer your services to help them shovel out their driveway, help them do their sidewalks, make sure that their mail gets up to their house from the mailbox.
Super. Boy, great. Thank you, Clint, for those kind words, and we'll continue to get through this winter season, and let's think spring.
Oh, I'm on it. I'll think spring as much as I can. Thank you so much, Mayor. This has been the Mayor's Report with Mayor Mike Beamish. I'm Clint Myers on 107.1 WTJF.